Hi guys, welcome to another video by CLATapult. Today in the interview series, we'll be in conversation with Samriddhi Mishra, who is presently a first-year student at NUJS and took her CLAT coaching from CLATapult.
Hi, I'm Samriddhi and I enrolled in the 2-year program at CLATapult.
Okay, great. So let's get started. Samriddhi, could you, just to start us off, tell us about how you were introduced to law as a career? What motivated you to give the CLAT exam?
Right, so I decided to pursue law when I was in class 8. And the reason for that was because I had participated in a number of MUNs and debates. So I was really into public speaking and I really like the subjects which are being offered by the BA and LB course. Apart from that, I'm also not a first generation lawyer. So there have been many people in my family who have been advocates. So law was like an obvious career choice for me. Apart from that, the reason as to why I decided to give CLAT was because that was the national level examination, which would give me a possible entry into a number of good colleges. So that is the reason why I ended up, preparing for CLAT.
Yeah, sounds good. Could you maybe tell us, starting off, right? You were a student for 2 years. So I'm assuming you started prep around class 10?
Yeah.
So what was your goal when you started preparation for CLAT? Was it a particular college? What exactly were you looking for after the exam?
So when I had just started with my CLAT preparation, I didn't really have any idea as to which NNUs were nice. So initially, my only goal was to get into some sort of college, whichever college I got with my rank. But then as I got more into preparation and as I got to know more about the NNUs, and their categorization as tier 1, tier 2, that is when I narrowed down on NUJS as the college of my choice.
Right. And considering that you were a student for 2 years, you prepped for this exam for 2 years, could you maybe tell us about your strategy, considering how your strategy differed from the first year to the second year, and how regular were you with your prep?
Right, so I had started my preparation in around August of 2021, and at that time, CLAT was supposed to happen in July of 2023. Later, it got preponed to December 2022. But in the months of 2021, I didn't really study as much, to be honest, because CLAT was very far off at that time. And I didn't really see a point, of being very hard on myself in the initial months. So after I got to know that CLAT had been preponed to December, that is when I knew that I had to buckle up. So I ended up giving the June attempt, the June 2022 attempt.
Okay.
I'm not a dropper. I just gave it when I was in class 11. So after that, my rank was around 2000. And after giving that exam, I got to realize what my weaknesses are and the areas in which I need to work on. So it was only after the June attempt that I, got more consistent and got more regular with my CLAT preparation. And at that time, what I started to do was that I became more regular with my mocks. I started to focus on my weak areas, that was GK and QT. And I started to make individual strategies for the sections and how I was going to approach them. And also because of the fact that I had a lot of time, right? So I had explored a number of strategies and I ended up going with the strategy which gave me the most marks in a particular section.
Yeah, that sounds good. So you talked about managing the time effectively, right? So could you tell us how did you balance, say, your school life with preparation for the CLAT exam particularly? Could you share some tips with the aspirants on how to effectively manage your time while dealing with so many things in class 11 and 12?
Right. So as I said, I had decided very early on that I'm going to be giving CLAT. So I had chosen a stream accordingly. I ended up opting for humanities because I felt like it would give me the most, leeway and freedom when it comes to preparing for CLAT. And so I would say that I had this realization very early on that CLAT was way more important for me than the school examinations. So I think what the aspirants could do is that initially you could have like a 50-50 approach, dividing your time for school exams and for CLAT. And as the months near CLAT start approaching, maybe you could give more of your time, say 80% of your time to CLAT preparation. And in the last month before CLAT, that is November, I ended up taking like a study leave from my school. And I did not study for the boards at all. I just ended up preparing for CLAT throughout. Also, the fact that CLAT has been preponed to December, it means that you will be giving your board examinations after you give CLAT. So I feel like the aspirants could, prepare for their board examinations after CLAT happens. So I think you should also keep that in mind.
Yeah, that sounds good. So let's come to the exam in itself, right? So preparing for the CLAT exam, which has 5 different sections, could you maybe tell us what was your favorite section that you liked the most, and the section that you found to be the most challenging, and how did you overcome this issue?
Right. So for me, my favorite section was legal reasoning. I think it was very interesting, because from my experience, I understand that the paragraph has all the information that you need, and you need to apply that in hypothetical situations provided in the form of questions. So for me, legal reasoning was I like doing legal reasoning the most. I ended up scoring like 32 in the CLAT examination. As far as the most challenging section is concerned, I feel like for almost every aspirant, GK, the CA part, is the most difficult thing to cover, because you have a number of sources for that, and you get confused as to which source to pick up. And also, the CLAT consortium has a tendency of, not giving very straightforward or expected questions when it comes to CA. They just like to throw you off. So I think aspirants, at least I had a difficult time preparing for CA. And I think that is the case with most aspirants. I think the way to go about it would be to select one particular source. So for me, CLATapult provides like a monthly compendium, and they divide the topics into national, international, sports, miscellaneous. So I referred to that, the monthly compendium for that. And I also referred to a question banklet. I don't remember exactly which one I used, but then CLATapult also provides one in the form of an online version. So apart from the monthly compendium, I also used to attempt the GK section in the mocks, right? I didn't attend the entire mock, I just did the GK section. So that was also like a way in which I prepared GK. I ended up scoring 48, which was like, I would say it's a decent mark to score for the December attempt. And I think GK and QT is what sets you apart.
Right.
Because almost every aspirant is good in the reading sections. You won't find any person who's very bad in them. But then you're going to have a number of aspirants who are not so good in GK and QT. So if you want to get a good rank, I would say that also prepare extensively for GK and QT.
Yeah, that sounds good. So when you were going through these monthly compendiums, did you always keep on doing like, say, a monthly compendium for March, April, as in when they came out? Did you do all of these compendiums together at the end, or were you also constantly revising them throughout the year?
So the thing is that I was very bad in my GK preparation, like very, very bad. And the thing was, I was, for a long period of time, I just didn't feel like revising them. So for example, if I completed, say, March monthly compendium, and then it was, say, September, and I've forgotten everything because I didn't revise it properly. So I would say that the aspirants should learn from this mistake. Please just select one source. I was also like intimidated by the number of sources there. And if you see another person going through 2 or 3 sources, you feel like you're lacking and you want to complete them as well. So my advice would be stick to one source and revise it thoroughly. I didn't do that and I regret doing that. But I think revision is the most important thing. There's no point in learning it once and then forgetting it.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. So besides, say, the GK compendium, was there any other specific resources or the materials that CLATapult provided that you found to be particularly helpful? Additionally, any particular teacher or subject whose teaching style you just really enjoyed here at CLATapult?
So I remember that for GK, Suvarup used to make about question banklets of about 40 questions, and he used to send it to us during our class hours, and used to solve it, and we would like, it was like a sectional, right, for GK. And these question banklets were really helpful. It was also important to realize, how much marks you're scoring in comparison to other aspirants. It gives you like a position, it gives you an idea of what position you are in with regards to GK. So Suvarup used to do that. He also told us about, I think it was Sayyam who told us about PESTEL, political, economic, different aspects of a particular topic which is supposed to cover. So I think GK, we got like a lot of insights from our teachers at CLATapult, so I'm really thankful for that. And as far as other subjects are concerned, I was really grateful to have, such nice teachers, because I used to be in touch with them on WhatsApp. For example, QT was really bad for me. So I used to send the entire question to Swagata ma'am on WhatsApp and she used to solve it. For legal reasoning, I used to send, extensive questions, elaborate questions to Achal and Stella, and they used to send voice messages. With regards to teaching style, I would say that it was Vidani Di who was like very helpful, because we had Stella and Achal for covering the subject aspect of it, the theory aspect of it. But what Mitali used to do was that she used to take up application in our class. We used to solve a minimum of 2 questions in our class. She used to read the entire paragraph with us. She used to outline the particular line which we were supposed to. And while solving the questions, she would read it out with us. And she would tell us of the process which is going on in her mind while solving the question. Which line she's referring to, what we are supposed to do, the assumptions she's going to work out, any sort of situation in which it's not going to work out, things like that. And I think that is something which really helped me for legal reasoning. And it also made legal reasoning way more easier for me.
Yeah.
Also, we had Srijaya. Almost all the teachers are really nice. So we had Srijaya for RC. And I remember that very, very early on, she taught us how to read passages.
Yeah.
So she used to tell us ways in which we should not be, passively reading. For example, you're not supposed to be reading facts because you could always refer back to them. You're supposed to be taking out assertions, and you're supposed to reduce your entire paragraph to 1 or 2 lines maximum. So I think having teachers like that who teach you, because I don't think there are many teachers who teach you how to read a paragraph, because it's different from your normal reading. You can't read a storybook like you read a CLAT question. So I think those are the faculties which I'm really grateful for having.
Yeah, I'm really good to hear that you were spoiled for choice and you couldn't choose one. But going forward, could you maybe tell us what your daily routine looked like? So maybe we could divide it at, say, the early on months for prep and maybe the final month for prep as well. You told us about how you took a month off from school. So what exactly did you do throughout the day to keep yourself motivated to ensure that you were correcting your mistakes and were properly practiced?
Right. So before I gave the June attempt, 2022, before that I used to focus mostly on concept building. I used to go through the concepts, for example, QT, legal reasoning, also CR, what is an assumption and all that. So I spent most of my time doing concept building. And then after July, I realized what my weak concepts are, and I only used to attend classes for those particular concepts. And after July, it was mainly about giving mocks and sectionals. It was about practice and realizing what mistakes I'm making, and trying to avoid those mistakes in the next mock which I'm giving. This was after July, and in the months of November and October, that is right before CLAT was supposed to happen, I had covered all of the concepts which I was weak in. I started giving a mock almost every other day. So I gave around 60 mocks in the last 3 months or something. And I used to analyze them. And apart from that, apart from giving a mock and sectional on the days in which I'm not giving a mock, I used to do GK and QT. One sectional of QT I used to give every day. Even if it was even if it was a mock day, I used to give one sectional of QT.
Right.
And I think apart from that, it's also important to, include some form of non-academic activity in your day. So for me, that involved, watching The Office and talking to my friends. Because I feel what's more important is that you should be more intense in your last month's preparation.
Yeah.
But you don't want to burn yourself out, say, days before the CLAT examination is supposed to happen. You don't want to do that to yourself. So I was intense, yes. But then I also made room for, activities which helped me calm down and talking to friends and having the support group. Yeah, I think those are the things which helped me.
Yeah, that sounds really good. So I think one thing you mentioned was giving a number of mocks. You said about 60 mocks and analyzing them, right? So I personally feel that if you don't analyze a mock, it's a wasted mock. So maybe could you take us through how did you analyze it? What were you looking for when you were sitting down with a mock to analyze it?
Right. So one thing which I did very early on was that I had categorized the paper into 2 aspects. The reading section, CR, RC, legal reasoning, and we have QT and GK. So I think it's also important to set a realistic standard of, how much marks you want to be gaining. So, for example, the reading section is 100 marks. The bare minimum should be 65. Highest you could possibly go to. Now, it also depends on the difficulty level of the mock. But then the highest you could go for the reading sections is 85. And out of 50 ones in GK and QT, I used to hope to get about 25 because it's really bad and GK and QT. So after I gave a mock, first I used to check how much I got in these 2, sections, the reading section and the GK and QT part. Now the thing with GK and QT is that these are objective sections. You either know the answer or you don't. Yeah. So for example, if I scored about say 8 in QT, then I'm going to see which particular type of questions. For example, if it was a DI question or a probability question, that sort of concept which I'm lacking in. Then I used to practice more of that particular concept. When it came to GK, I used to just learn up the questions and I used to research more about the topics which I've not been able to answer. As far as the reading sections are concerned, I used to get about 20 questions wrong. So I started categorizing my mistakes. For example, maybe some questions I just, I did not mark them correctly. So it was a silly mistake, which I'm probably not going to repeat. And then the remaining type of mistakes which I made, they were more theoretical in nature. So for example, I'm not being able to figure out what the assumption is, or not being able to figure out what the conclusion was supposed to be, what an appropriate title could have been, things like that. So I think it's also important to realize the type of mistakes that you're making. And I mean, you are always going to be making a minimum number of mistakes, right? You can't get all of the questions right. So for example, sometimes I just used to be like, oh, this is the bare minimum number of questions I'm going to get wrong. And I was never really bogged down with the number of mistakes, honestly.
Okay, so maybe following up on that, what was your strategy with regards to, since all of us know, CLAT has a negative 0.25 marks if you get an answer wrong. So what was your strategy with regards to how many attempts to make, how to minimize the loss that you have by negative marking?
Right, so I think I used to get about 20 questions wrong. Even if it was a very good mark, I used to get 20 questions wrong. And most of them used to be from the logical reasoning section.
Okay.
And I think it's important to have a fixed number of attempts.
Okay.
That also is going to depend upon the difficulty level of the question. You just don't want to be blindly, marking all of the questions. But you need to have a bare minimum number of questions which you are going to be attempting. So for me, what I used to do was that I gave myself a leeway that I'm going to be attempting all of the questions in legal reasoning. I'll maybe not attempt 2 questions of legal reasoning, because with the reading sections, they're not objective in nature. You don't really know if it's going to be a right answer or a wrong answer. So you could end up taking the risk that maybe I am confused between 2 options. I'm going to select one of them. You could take that risk. Whereas it came to the objective section, that is GK and QT, I did not really have a set number of questions which I'm going to be attempting because I either know the answer or don't.
Yeah.
So I don't really feel like taking a gamble when it comes to GK and QT. But when it comes to the reading section, I used to give myself a leeway of about 2 questions per section.
We've talked about, how to manage time efficiently, and you also talked about how you should do certain activities to de-stress yourself to ensure you don't burn out. Could you maybe tell us how did you stay motivated and focused throughout the prep? Of course, de-stressing is very important, but were there any particular activities or particular goals or rewards that kept you motivated through the process? What was that for you?
Honestly, I didn't really have a system of rewards because I didn't really have a system of rewards. The only reward would be me getting into a good college.
Yeah.
So as far as motivation is concerned, I used to watch a number of, videos of NUJS on YouTube.
Yeah.
For example, the Invicta video. What does Invicta mean to you?
Yeah.
So videos like that, it really helps you be motivated. Also, listening to the interviews of the toppers or talking to CLATapult faculty because they were NUJS students. So you sometimes in class would ask the teachers to tell about their experience in NUJS.
Yeah.
So that was something which kept us motivated, and it reminded us of the reason why we started preparing for CLAT. So I think it's also important to remember what your initial mindset was, right, to get into a college and what your expectations out of yourself were, because it can get very frustrating at times. So it's important to remind yourself that, it's going to happen. You have been working for it. So having those positive ways of thinking, I think that is something which will help you in the long run.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I'm happy that it worked out for you as well. So coming now to the day of the exam itself, right? You're sitting in the CLAT center. The exam itself can be quite competitive. So what was going through your head? What was the feeling during the day of the exam? How did you keep yourself calm and sit for the exam?
Right. So I think that a number of people, whom I personally also know, they have prepared a lot, but then they were not good test takers as such because they got very anxious and they ended up messing up the strategy which they had in mind. So on the day of the exam, I saw a number of people. Okay, it was a huge center and there were so many people. It was very intimidating because you've never been surrounded by so many people before. And what I did was that I was in a corner, I was listening to music because I was not going to talk to anyone. You start talking to people and then you start thinking that, oh, I missed out, they've prepared more than me. How am I going to get in? You start feeling intimidated. So my strategy was that I'm not going to be interacting with anyone. I'll just be in a corner by myself. And also one thing which I had done to like mentally prepare myself was that I gave ALET. It was conducted a week before CLAT. So like I already knew what to expect in terms of, the people who are going to be there, the kind of atmosphere which I'm going to be in and things like that. And I think it's also important to have a very cool mindset when you're giving the exam. Because I know a number of people, who get very intense. They think it's a do or die situation. I mean, it might seem like that to you, but it's not the case. So I had a very cool mindset. I went in with the assumption that I'm going to get in. I just had that assumption in mind. It was not very realistic, obviously. But then I had this assumption that I'm going to get in. I just have to give the exam now.
Yeah.
And I think it's just important to, also be flexible in your approach. For example, I know people who had GK as a first section. And in the December attempt, the GK section was very unpredictable in nature. It was not very scoring. So if you attempt giving a bad section first, you might start feeling demotivated throughout the entire paper.
Wow.
So it's important to start with a section which you feel is going to give you confidence. One thing which I used to do was that I always used to go through the sections, the type of questions, the number of questions and all that. It's also good practice to see whether your question backlit is all the questions or not.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're missing a page or something like that. So I realized legal reasoning was comparatively easier and the RC was a bit difficult in the December one. So I mentally prepared myself. I started legal reasoning. It kept me motivated and confident throughout.
Okay, that sounds good. You were telling me earlier about an incident that happened, right, during the CLAT exam that kind of stressed you. So could you maybe want to share the same with us and how do you manage such unexpected situations while giving the exam?
Right. So what happened was that I had taken my phone with me to the examination center and it was right outside of the room. So for some reason, my phone started ringing at around 3 p.m. The exam happens from 2 to 4 p.m.
Yeah.
So I was on the logical reasoning section and I could hear my phone ringing. And it's very annoying for all of the other aspirants as well. So a person, he held my bag up and he came inside the room and he asked me to come out and switch off my phone. Now, all of this just took 2 minutes, realistically. But then it also disturbed my flow while I was giving the paper. I had to reread the entire logical reasoning question. And when I came back after switching off my phone, I had tears in my eyes, because I was really stressed at that point. I thought that I'm going to mess up the paper now because I had majority of the paper left. I had maths left. And the thing was that I would be wrong in saying that it did not affect me because I ended up missing out on QT. I did not attempt a single question. I just did the C thing. That is, I marked one option for all of the 15 questions. And I got 0.25. But then, I was about to start crying, but then I realized that I'm not going to be giving this paper again. And that, I could always cry later. It's no use of crying right now. So I think I had that sort of calmness about me also that, even if I mess up, it's not going to be a big deal. So I think it's also important to not be very intense and not get very anxious looking at the people around you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that happened to you, but it's great to hear that you could overcome that, especially in the heat of the moment. So talking about the test again, could you maybe tell us how much time did you take for each section? And in which order did you attempt? You told us about how you started attempting legal reasoning. How did you follow it up?
Right. So I used to start with legal reasoning and I used to spend about 35 minutes on that. After that, I used to attempt half of RC because I felt like RC was easier for me. So I used to spend about 15 minutes doing half of RC. So that's 50 minutes. I've done legal reasoning, I've done half of RC. Then I used to move to GK because I've done 2 reading intensive sections. So I need to take a break. So I would do GK. That would take about 7 minutes. And after that, I would start with RC again because I needed to get into that head zone where I'm reading again. I don't want to start off with CR because CR is difficult for me. So I did RC again, 15 minutes over there. Then I would divide the remaining time between CR and QT. So what happened was that, so I used to take about 30 minutes for CR. But then on the exam day, because of what happened, I ended up taking more than that. And I usually used to keep about 15 to 10 minutes for QT. But then on the exam day, I had no time left for QT.
Yeah.
But that used to be my sequence.
Okay, that sounds good. So you've given the exam, you come out at the center. Could you maybe tell us about, what are the thoughts running in your head? How do you feel about the attempt? Given that there was a little moment that you had with your phone ringing and whatnot. So were you happy with how the exam progressed? What were your thoughts in it?
So I think the first feeling was, relief. You start talking to all the other aspirants. You're very happy that the exam is over. But with regards to my attempt, I felt very neutral about it. I didn't think it was a bad attempt, but it was not my best. I felt like I could have done better. And as far as the number of attempts were concerned, what I ended up doing was that I started panicking, after my phone rang. So I ended up attempting more questions than usual.
Okay.
I attempted like 10 more questions than I usually do. So I was also scared about that. But the thing is that the exam is over, right? I can't really do anything about it. So a general sense of, relief started prevailing. And the first thing which I did was that I went to the JU website because I was pretty sure I was not going to get a decent college by CLAT. So I started searching for like alternatives. I think it's also important for the aspirants to, have backups.
Yeah.
Don't just completely rely on CLAT. Have backups, which is like realistic.
For sure, that sounds good. So the results come out. Could you maybe talk us through how was that day for you? How did it feel like seeing that you had actually made it, that you had a decent track? And you talked about how NUJS was a priority for you. So maybe, which other colleges were you looking at? What was your sequential order? Yeah.
So, luckily enough, I guess, because I got in, the results were announced on a day, but I was surrounded by my family. I was actually in UP, where I'm from. So I think my mom was very surprised. She didn't think I would get a decent college, to be very honest. But yeah, everybody around me was really happy. Even I was surprised after my attempt. And as far as NUJS is concerned, I feel like NUJS is a more popular choice among most aspirants. Also because of the fact that it's a college that's going to provide you leeway to also, pursue non-academic activities. I feel like after talking to first years from other colleges, from other NUs, I've realized that I am privileged to, have the opportunity to not be in a very, I would say, academically rigorous college. Because most of the first years from other colleges, they don't really have the opportunity to pursue non-academic interests. But as far as NUJS is concerned, I feel like one of the best things would be the fact that it gives you a lot of opportunities for non-academic fields. For example, we have Invicta coming up, which is a sports fest. And apart from that, the cult com is also very active. We have Garba night and Gas Games night and things like that. So I think NUJS is very popular in that aspect also. And that is what attracted me to NUJS.
Yeah, sounds good. Could you maybe talk us through your experiences in college? From what I gather, you've spent approximately 2 months in college now, 2 to 3 months. Yeah. So how have these first few months been? How has shifting from school life to college life been for you? How have the classes academically been and the people all around you?
Right. So I think this is one of the most popular questions among the aspirants. Even I was like that. I wanted to know more about college. I have completed 1 semester in NUJS as of now. My NSEMs are left. I think, first of all, it's going to be a very humbling experience for everyone. Yeah. The very first thing your mentor told me that it was going to be very humbling, and it has. I think my batch is very vibrant with people who are very ambitious in nature. And, they're also helpful. They're going to help you with notes and everything. And they have a lot of non-academic pursuits as well, sports, photography, things like that, drawing and all that. So I think that as a batch as a whole, it's very interesting to be around such people because you get to learn a lot from them. And also because of the fact that it's a national level college, you have people from other states coming in. So culturally also, it's a very diverse college. As far as academics are concerned, as I said, it's not very challenging at this point of time. And I'm really happy to be part of different societies. So I think NUJS also has so many societies. We have so many different fun events planned throughout the year. So I'm really grateful to be part of NUJS, and it's been a nice experience so far.
Yeah, I'm great to hear that you are thriving college from the sounds of it. Can you maybe talk us through your future aspirations? What was your mindset entering into law school from? What do you want out of law? And how do you plan towards achieving these goals in whichever field you would like to pursue a career in?
So the thing was that I think almost everybody enters college, at least NUJS has that, with the hopes that they're going to get corporate placement. And NUJS is very popular for that. But I think that me being in my first semester, I want to explore all the possibilities that there are. And for that, I plan on, taking internships of various kinds and not sticking to one kind of internship, because I want to know what interests me the most, what things I'm good at. And apart from that, I think that's it, like for example, I tried moving for the first time and I really enjoyed that. So I think that people who are coming to NUJS, you might have this one mindset that I'm going to go only for this. But then you interact with so many seniors and you realize that there are way more possibilities that you could have imagined. So yeah, that is going to be my approach, open to everything. And then maybe in the later years, I narrow down on one field.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I honestly believe that at least in the formative years in law school, you should keep the options and the doors open and see what suits you. So all the best to you in that journey, and I hope law school is all you hoped it to be. Before we sign off, could you maybe share some final tips or final thoughts for the aspirants watching this video?
I would say that focus a lot on GK and QT, but then also don't rely on GK and QT because you never know of the difficulty of the section. Also, the consortium is not very helpful in that aspect. They're going to throw you off with your GK and QT questions. And reading sections almost everybody is good at. So you'll have to, to set yourself apart from the other aspirants, please focus on GK and QT. And as far as non-academic tips are concerned, I would say have a support system. So I had a lot of friends who showed a lot of faith in me. And I think it's important to, talk about your worries with other people. Don't just keep it to yourself. And also, please don't get burned out before CLAT. You need to be in your best form when you're giving the CLAT examination. And it's not the end of the world even if you don't get in, you have a lot of opportunities still. So I think that is my advice for the future aspirant.
Yeah, and if I could just add on to that, I think one thing that I tell all my juniors and students as well is just believe in yourself, right? Just ensure that you're putting a foot in front of the other and just complete this journey. And I'm sure it's going to turn out good for you. If not, there are always other opportunities and other areas for you to explore. It's not the end of the world, understand? Thank you so much, Samriddhi, for coming on to the interview today. It was great speaking to you. All the best.
Thank you.